Welcome back, everyone. They've released even more Superman footage. There's more Easter eggs and references going on in the background, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos, because there's going to be even more footage coming very soon. First big detail are some of the huge cameo scenes, big deep cuts for the original Christopher Reeve Superman movie in 1978. There are even some Batman Easter eggs hidden in the background if you look really hard. You notice during the big kaiju fight, when he's fighting amongst the big buildings and the billboards in the background, this person on the news is actually Christopher Reeve's real-life son, who is a newscaster, like that's what he does for his regular job. When they made the movie, James Gunn just put him in the movie because so much of it is inspired by the original Christopher Reeve Superman Richard Donner film. The other real big cameo scene that we know about, at least right now, are cameos from Simon & Schuster's grandsons. They're inside the Daily Planet in the background, though. So I think in the context of the movie, they just happen to be working at the Daily Planet. You also notice that when they cut to the titles between the scenes in the actual trailer, they're done in the style of the titles from the original Christopher Reeve Superman movie. James Gunn said the reason why the movie is actually titled Superman is because when they were making it, they actually had a separate title, but then he realized that the original Christopher Reeve Superman movie was technically titled Superman the Movie, so he could just title this movie Superman and it would be totally fine. James Gunn clarified this one. There's an attack that Superman uses when he's fighting what seems like the big kaiju during the movie. You notice the camera pans upwards towards the sun, and he comes from the sun line of sight, and he's making a cannonball motion. That's right, it seems like Superman is doing a super cannonball to attack the giant kaiju. I think this is the first time in any movie or any TV show or even a comic book that I remember seeing Superman ever do a cannonball using his super strength and super speed. I think the idea that he's just taking the kaiju down, in the way that the merch has described the kaiju, is that Lex Luthor is pictured with a baby kaiju, so I think that just confirms that he has something to do with creating the kaiju or growing it to this size. There's a lot of reports about the movie that he does a lot of this kind of weird experimentation inside his pocket dimension, where you see Superman trapped for a brief period in the movie, and there's hundreds and hundreds of cells with other people trapped in them. Also seems like there's a big fight that he has with that evil version of Superman because there's lasers coming at him from the debris in the background here, meaning that it's someone with the powers of Superman, so who else could it be but that evil version of Superman?
Hey buddy, eyes up here.
Like I said before, he's supposed to be the person inside that Hammer of Baravia armor suit, which does have the star on it that looks a little bit like it's inspired by the Nuclear Man from Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. If a lot of this movie is inspired by Christopher Reeve's Superman, and David Corenswet's Superman and his Clark Kent are also inspired by Christopher Reeve's performance as those versions of the character, then it makes sense that a little bit of it is probably inspired by Superman 4: Quest for Peace. Another deep cut from that movie, you'll remember that John Cryer played Lenny Luthor, Lex Luthor's nephew, during that. He also came back as Lex Luthor during the Supergirl TV show inside the Arrowverse as well. Also part of this scene, a whole bunch of Big Belly Burger ads in the background too. There's a lot of that throughout the Superman movie just in general. They featured Big Belly Burger all the time in the Arrowverse on the Flash TV show, on Arrow in general. There's another big Batman Easter egg too on one of the other billboards where there's another newscast going on. It says major floods in Gotham. Also giving a little bit of vibes of Batman v Superman, like literally the beginning of that movie is them addressing the collateral damage from the big fight during Man of Steel against Zod that caused a bunch of destruction and collateral damage in Gotham City that Batman had to deal with, which caused him to hate Superman. Inside that pocket dimension, it looks like Mr. Terrific is helping Lois Lane. Maybe they're escaping the pocket dimension, or she's helping him get in so that they can help Superman, because it seems like he's trapped briefly with the help of Metamorpho, who turns himself into kryptonite, and it seems like Lex Luthor is forcing him to help him, because part of the idea is that Metamorpho is meant to be a good character, so why is he hurting Superman with kryptonite? Just seems like Lex Luthor is manipulating him. There was also some new merch with Lex Luthor in a war suit, so he might actually wear a war suit during the movie. We'll get into that in a second. But there's also this freakish looking little Baby Joey, and people are like, what the hell is Baby Joey? Baby Joey is Baby Joey Mason, Metamorpho's son in the comics, so it's possible that Lex Luthor is holding his son hostage, and that's why Metamorpho is forced to actually help him try to stop Superman or trap Superman. At some point, he breaks out of here, though. Like, you literally see him break out of the cell, and then he starts fighting this evil version of Superman in this same space. So I think maybe the idea is that eventually Superman frees all these creations. Maybe some of them he helps foster at the Fortress of Solitude, because he does have an alien zoo at the Fortress of Solitude. But we will see what they say happens to this space. Like, I think just part of the idea is that he frees all these people and then just destroys Lex's ability to use this to experiment on people. It's also possible this pocket dimension is where Lex Luthor created the evil Superman clone that he's calling Ultraman during the movie. This is another huge question. There was some merch that pictured him calling him Ultraman. So people see the U on his chest, they hear the name Ultraman, they're like, wait a minute, is he just from another universe? If Lex Luthor is just using a pocket dimension here, and we just saw them use that twist in the Peacemaker TV series, for Peacemaker going to an alternate universe and fighting another version of himself from that other universe, are they going to use a similar twist in the Superman movie with another evil version of Superman? It is not totally clear, but every time I've ever heard anybody associated with the movie, they refer to the Ultraman as just being an evil Superman clone that Lex Luthor creates, making it sound like it's an Easter egg for like the super deep cut origin, like the old origins of Bizarro, where he's a failed clone that was created by Lex Luthor that eventually degenerates into Bizarro, instead of just being from another universe like the more recent retcons to Bizarro's backstory. So it is possible that we see a version of an origin story for Bizarro in the movie through this Ultraman character. Also seen a lot of people wondering if this pocket dimension is just going to wind up being the Phantom Zone, because the Phantom Zone operates a little bit like an alternate dimension too. It's possible that James Gunn makes that connection, but it kind of feels like the way James Gunn has been talking about pocket dimensions and using them on Peacemaker is that it's just a smaller pocket dimension that Lex creates for himself. And if he eventually does actual Phantom Zone, that will be a completely different place, but we'll see. When it actually comes to Lex Luthor in the war suit, that could just be something that they did for the toys. That has happened in previous movies, like they actually did that during the Zack Snyder Man of Steel era, where eventually you saw Lex Luthor wearing the war suit from the comics, but you never actually saw him wearing the war suit in the movies themselves. But you notice throughout the trailer footage, and even in the behind the scenes trailer where James Gunn is like standing with all these LexCorp troops, they're all wearing armor suits that look a lot like lo-fi versions of the war suit. So maybe at some point, Lex Luthor will just put one of these on, like an upgraded version of one of the suits, and that'll be his war suit. Also the idea that he creates the Hammer of Baravia suit and puts the evil Superman in it, meaning that he's creating a whole bunch of different armor suits. Why would he be doing that if they weren't building up to him actually building the war suit from the comics? There are a couple new promos that they released for the movie with a couple new scenes. So this scene is Superman confronting Lex Luthor inside his office at LexCorp. I think it's connected to this scene where he says he's back and then he like flies past his window. Not clear when this happens in the movie, but it just seems like Superman arrives inside his office and is pissed off. Like there's something that he's figured out that Lex has done that he's really, really mad about. And it seems like Lex Luthor is sitting in his chair here, just taunting Superman, trying to get him to hurt him so that he can twist it against him in the news. Like, look what Superman did to me. Look what a villain he is.
Still stronger.
Part of the idea is that he spends the whole movie trying to tear Superman down, tear his public image down, get everybody in the world to turn against him, because it seems like when the movie picks up, the world loves Superman already, and Lex Luthor can't stand that. Nicholas Hoult has a little bit of dialogue during the trailer where he literally says something like that, like, the world is preoccupied with him, and I can't have that. Notice in the background, all of his pictures, his books, like, he does have a lot of real stuff going on in the office here. Like, it's not all just for show. But it seems like this is connected to the scene where Superman throws his desk across the room. You can actually see some footage of that where, like, he literally picks his desk up and just swats it across the office. You can also see a reverse shot of the consoles that he has here where he's standing and he's kind of looking down at what's going on, like some big fight that's happening. Not clear if that's the beginning of the movie, if it's the kaiju fight or the Hammer of Baravia fight scene. One of the many fight scenes that it seems like Lex Luthor is overseeing, orchestrating. But I love the idea that he has all this advanced technology that he's created purely to attack Superman. Feels very on brand for something that Lex Luthor would do. There's another brand new promo that they released with a couple new shots where you see him with Lois Lane in the middle of the street amidst all the debris. You just see them have a moment after it seems like the fight is done, and then he takes off. Like you can see her turn her head as he flies by. There's another scene of him flying close to camera. It seems like James Gunn is also trying to film Superman in a way that he hasn't been filmed before, and every director does this. So it'll be interesting to see how he films all these different characters, not just Superman, and how it's different from the way that Zack Snyder used the camera. During his fight with the Hammer of Baravia, and you see him laser Superman, and he winds up taking out this building with the collateral damage in the middle of their meeting, this is actually a meeting of the Chacos Company, but it's inside the Lord Tech building, so it seems like the Chacos Company just rents out office space from Maxwell Lord, who is played by his brother, Sean Gunn. But obviously, the other detail here is that Chacos, big Easter egg during the movie, implies that we're going to see a version of Martian Manhunter at some point, because it's his favorite treat. That's the reason why you do Chacos. Zack Snyder started to get into some Martian Manhunter during the Justice League Snyder Cut, but we didn't really spend enough time in that universe for him to develop that character in a really serious way. There's a couple interesting details here too with his fights with the Engineer. There's a couple different fights that you see the Engineer having during the movie. In the trailer, it seems like she's critical to Lex Luthor breaking into the Fortress of Solitude. You notice, obviously, most people talking about Krypto attacking her and basically just messing her face up big time because he does have superpowers because he's Krypto the Superdog. This is probably a build-up from him attacking Superman inadvertently, like him playing with Superman the way the dogs play with you but wind up hurting you instead. Just based on the way the Engineer rips through a bunch of his robots, I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening right after Krypto has taken him back to the Fortress of Solitude to heal him after he lands in the snow, all bloodied. They heal him using the sun's rays in the fortress's technology, Kryptonian technology, and then at some point, then Lex Luthor tries to break in and winds up destroying a lot of these robots. I already talked about it during that previous clip too, but when Krypto drags him to the Fortress of Solitude and the robots carry him to that special chair where they heal him using the sun, you can also hear Jor-El and his mother, Lara, speaking Kryptonian in the background. And it actually does sound a little bit like Bradley Cooper, so I do think that Bradley Cooper is going to be James Gunn's version of Jor-El, which makes sense. Longtime collaborator with James Gunn. He's been Rocket Raccoon in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies for a very long time, and will continue to be Rocket Raccoon. We will probably see him show up at some point during Avengers Doomsday or Avengers Secret Wars with the new Guardians team. But I'm guessing we'll also see Bradley Cooper on screen during this movie on some recording in some way as a version of Jor-El. Like, it just feels like this is an opportunity to actually show him on screen as Jor-El. You also notice during the Engineer fight here inside the fortress where Krypto hurts her face and you can see the nanites under her skin. So it almost seems like she's using the nanites to make her face seem more human, because you look during the other fight that she has with Superman inside the stadium in Metropolis. It's the Meteor Stadium. They're a team from the comics. But notice how her appearance has changed during this. Like, she's got a jetpack on her back made out of nanites. Her face seems way more mechanical, more robot looking. She looks way more unhinged as she's trying to take Superman down. And you'll notice in the background of the fight, Mr. Terrific down in the grass in the stadium, like she's taken him out already, like his jetpack is in pieces. But also you notice that Ultraman, the evil version of Superman in that black suit, is also face down in the grass, meaning that it's possible that Superman's final boss during this movie is actually the Engineer, not the evil version of Superman, which would be a bit of a misdirect. Like, you would think that the evil copy of Superman that has the exact same powers would be the ultimate threat, when it seems like the misdirect is that it's actually the Engineer that winds up being the final boss that he has to stop. This would be a big twist too, because in the comics, the Engineer winds up joining the Authority team eventually and being a relatively good character. I think in the context of the movie, she's working for Lex, so she just does whatever Lex wants her to do, and his whole thing is trying to take Superman down, so she just does things in pursuit of taking Superman down, including literally fighting him at a certain point.
Accept.
You can actually see her attacking him with her nanites through the grass here. The way the actress talked about her Engineer character is that she has a moral choice during the movie, like how far is she willing to go for Lex Luthor. So I think part of the idea is that there might be a talk no jutsu kind of moment where eventually Superman, like in the middle of this fight here, he eventually slowly wins her over and she just backs down. Like, he doesn't kill her or anything like that. Because remember, at a certain point, they were going to do an Authority movie, but James Gunn said they've been having some problems with that behind the scenes. So maybe no Authority movie, but we will see the Engineer come back in future movies eventually. And I think the idea is that when she comes back, she'll be more of an ally to Superman. There's a couple brand new scenes of Superman with Krypto and Mr. Terrific with Krypto. He is really leaning hard into dog culture for this movie, like dog lovers are going to love this movie. There's a scene of Mr. Terrific that it seems like he's trying to coax Krypto to do something on the ground here in the middle of this big battle. I don't know if this is during the kaiju fight or during the other final big boss fight in the movie. We will see. But it just seems like he's trying to get Krypto to do something and he's using dog treats to do it. Very, very relatable. I already talked about all the funny scenes of Krypto resting on top of him inside his childhood bedroom in the Kent farm, giving the most chaotic, relatable dog vibes ever. In the context of the movie, the way that James Gunn and David Corenswet have talked about Krypto the super dog is that it's not actually Superman's dog, he's just dog sitting for Supergirl, and Krypto is really her dog. Recently, Warner Brothers made all the HBO Max jokes, like they were leaning into the joke of it because they renamed Max to HBO Max. So like they've changed the name for HBO Max like 20 different times in the last couple of years. It's ridiculous, of course, so they just kind of leaned into the joke. They even did some tie-in James Gunn parody promos and Peacemaker promos where they had John Cena joking about the HBO name change.
So I should correct and say HBO Max instead of Max in all of these reads because
But one of the other cool details is that when they actually did this, they revealed on the page for the Superman movie, like there's a bunch of promos for the Superman movie playing on HBO Max right now in front of everything. The actual cast list lists Millie Alcock's Supergirl for the Superman movie, confirming that Supergirl is going to show up during the Superman movie. Warner Brothers sort of giving away some of the secrets of their own movie inadvertently. I think this just confirms earlier rumors that Supergirl shows up at the very end of the movie to pick Krypto up, like, thanks for dog sitting for me. And you've seen Krypto have this huge adventure, all these different adventures with Superman throughout the film. But the way that James Gunn said is that he was modeled after his own real-life dog, Uzo, who was a rescue dog. So in the context of the DC movies, Krypto will be a rescue dog that Supergirl rescued at some point. When it actually comes to some of the other big Justice League characters, there was a recent presentation that Warner Brothers did as part of the upfronts, and part of that was them revealing a 10-year plan for DC. James Gunn has talked about that in the past. Right now, we're just in the middle of DC Phase 1, like DC Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. That's only for the next couple of years, not the full 10-year plan. Their big 10-year plan is more like the future of all the Justice League stuff, all the other real big characters that they haven't fully revealed yet. But the way that David Zaslav was talking about it, the 4 pillars of the DC movies and TV shows that James Gunn is doing right now include Superman, obviously, like we're starting with Superman, Batman, the brand new Batman that they're going to recast inside the DCU that'll be part of the Brave and the Bold movie. He'll be the one that shows up in all the crossover movies like the World's Finest movie that it sounds like James Gunn is eventually going to do. He named Supergirl, obviously, because like that's the next big movie that they're doing after the Superman movie. And Wonder Woman, James Gunn also revealed that he has some special news for Wonder Woman, good news that he's going to be announcing sometime soon. So it sounds like the next real big actor that he announces, next big Justice League character, will be a Wonder Woman reveal. But he didn't say which movie she's going to appear in for the first time. I think she's going to debut in the movies first. They kind of teased her in the background during Creature Commandos, but they didn't show who the actress was because he hadn't cast the actress yet. He's got all the Green Lantern stuff that he's already revealed in all the different trailers with the different versions, even Peacemaker now. There's a little bit of Green Lantern going on during Peacemaker. We got the Green Lantern HBO series with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. I've already talked about how I think that Jon Stewart is going to be the Green Lantern on the new version of the Justice League when they form. They announced they're working on a Teen Titans movie in live action, so I think that's where we're going to see the Cyborg character show up, and he will not be on the Justice League. They're going to replace him basically with Jon Stewart Green Lantern. I think this is one of the ways that James Gunn is going to differentiate his version of the Justice League from Zack Snyder's Justice League, in that he just goes with a different roster. Like we said, more like the animated Justice League roster. Which actually brings us to the last piece of the puzzle. He has not talked about the Flash yet. That's like one of the few characters that he hasn't said a lot about, but all the Creature Commandos Easter eggs made it seem like it's going to wind up being the Wally West version of the Flash in present day, and it'll be an older Barry Allen, the same way it's an older Hal Jordan, which kind of makes sense. Like if he's going with much older Hal Jordan, why wouldn't he also go with a much older Barry Allen? We will see which movie, which TV show we start actually seeing a live-action Flash on screen again inside the DCU. For a while, I thought James Gunn was going to wait to announce his new Batman until the Batman 2 came out in theaters, but if there are even more delays, like if it goes on long enough, he'd probably just go ahead and announce it. I just did a much bigger video for all the other footage and Easter eggs that I didn't talk about in this video. Click here for that, watch that a billion times, and click here for all my other Superman, Peacemaker, and brand new DC videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.